friends, Krista here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams again. Today we are going to be talking about series. I did not give myself any official goals for 2019, but something that's kind of in the back of my mind and in the forefront because I'm keeping them on this shelf is that I would like to make progress in the 20 different series that I am in the middle of. But today I thought I would go through the books that I own that are the next in the series and also let you know the other books that or the other series that I'm in the middle of. So I have 20, like I said, 20 series that I am making my way through, and I'm going to tell you about them right now. Last January, I read the first book in the Outlander series, so I would like to continue. I only have books 1 and 2. I do love this big, huge, floppy edition, so I'm hoping that I do get to Dragonfly in Amber this year. Another big chunker that I read in 2018 is Pillars of the Earth, and I did find the next book, World Without End, at a used bookstore this past year, and I actually also found Column of Fire, which is the third in the trilogy. Now these ones are massive, and the easiest way to describe Pillars of the Earth is to say it's about the building of a cathedral, but it's really so much more than that. There are so many characters, it spans such a long amount of time, but it was very much a page turner. I was invested in it right from the get-go. There are some wonderful characters that you grow to love, and there are some villains that you definitely grow to hate. So I'm looking forward to reading the sequel to Pillars of the Earth, and I'm hoping that it is as captivating as the first book was. I have two fantasy series, well, I have lots of fantasy series, but two fantasy series that I'm almost done with. These are the third books in both trilogies. One is Hero of Ages, which will finish out the Mistborn trilogy. This is by Brandon Sanderson. It's a well-loved series here on BookTube, and I read it because so many people recommended it to me. This should be happening very soon. Why are fantasy books always so big, though? That's what I want to know. The other fantasy trilogy that I need to finish up is Assassin's Quest. This is the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb. I started this trilogy last June, I believe, as a buddy read, as a group buddy read on Voxer. And I think most of the group has finished the trilogy, but I still have this third book to read. So I'm hoping that these two get finished in 2019, hopefully sooner rather than later. I have 5 more here that will actually complete the series if I read them. So I'm really hoping to get through these in the next year. And one of them is a YA contemporary companion series called, well, it's Anna and the French Kiss is the first one. Lola and the Boy Next Door I read in the summertime of 2018. And then this is the third, Isla and the Happily Ever After. I have read and unhauled the first two, so I really think that that's probably going to be the case with this one. I'll read it and unhaul it. This is an easy one-day readathon read that is probably pretty lighthearted and, I don't know, YA. Simple, breezy. I'm not going to love it. It'll probably be a 3-star read, but I want to finish it. Let's just get it done. I also have another YA book. This is a fantasy trilogy by Sarah Ella. This is Unbreakable. I have really been enjoying these. The Fiction Guild has sent me 2 of them, 3 of them, I think all of them, over the course of the last couple years since the first one came out, and I'm excited to finish up this trilogy. In the first book, the main character lives in New York City, and she has these markings on her face, kind of like a birthmark that she really doesn't like, but in the first book she discovers that these markings have a different meaning, and there are different reflections or versions of New York City, that each one is kind of its own little world. And throughout the trilogy she goes to all of these different reflections are represented, and kind of you get to travel to them, which is a pretty cool adventure. I'm just looking forward to finishing this series up. I also have the follow-up to my, not follow-up, but this isn't technically a series, but Britt Marie Was Here by Frederick Bachman follows a character, Britt Marie, that is in My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry. So it's not technically a series, but because this book continues on with the story from what happens in My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry, Britt Marie was kind of a cranky, annoying character in that book, so I'm looking forward to seeing if her character changes in this one. Another duology that I started, I think, was it last year or in 2017 that I read, The Winter Sea by Susanna Kearsley. This is the follow-up to that, and it's the Firebird. I believe this can be read on its own, but I think characters from The Wintersea are in this one, or a generation or two later. I think something along those lines. But yeah, I am definitely interested in reading more Susanna Kearsley, and especially because this one has connections to The Wintersea, which I really enjoyed. I'm looking forward to reading and continuing with that. And the fifth one that will finish up a series, sort of, I believe this is kind of a similar situation to the Firebird. This is called A Sparrow in Terezin by Christy Cambron. She's also the author of The Butterfly and the Violin, and I believe some of the characters from that, there are some kind of crossover between the two books. So it's been years since I've read The Butterfly and the Violin, but I definitely loved it. It's set during World War II and involves some art, has kind of dual timelines. I think this is going to be a similar type of situation because this one also deals with art, has two timelines that we follow, and one of them happens in 1942 during World War II. So I'm looking forward to diving back into that story or something similar. With A Sparrow in Terezin. I have two middle grade series that I'm in the middle of. I did read near the beginning of my booktube journey. I read The Goose Girl by Shannon Hale, and then in one of my book outlet purchases over the last couple years, I purchased the rest of the Books of Bayern series. So Enna Burning is the second one that follows The Goose Girl. I don't really know anything about it, but I loved The Goose Girl. It has a very The Goose Girl is a fairy tale retelling. I'm not sure about the rest of the books in the series, but I do have the rest of them in this edition. I would love to find The Goose Girl in this edition as well, because I think it's really pretty. But I'm looking forward to continuing that series. And one of my booktuber recommends jar recommendations from 2017 was Stravaganza City of Masks, and that was recommended to me by Kales from Kales Corner, and I just recently found City of Masks, which I had borrowed from the library, and the second one, City of Stars by Mary Hoffman, at a library book sale, and so I picked up those two books. I really enjoyed City of Masks. It kind of is a fantasy historical middle grade / YA where there is kind of an alternate universe. So a boy in our real world somehow travels to this alternate Venice way back in the day. So this is going to continue that story, and I'm really excited to continue those middle grade books. All right, I've got a few more. I have two YA series that I'm in the middle of, and I read a couple months ago The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson, and it ended on such a cliffhanger that I wished that I had jumped right into the next one. It hasn't been that long, so I'm definitely going to continue with The Heart of Betrayal by Mary E. Pearson. This is the Remnant Chronicles. This is book 2, and I did just haul book 3 from Book Outlet, so hopefully I'll be able to finish this whole series, this whole trilogy, relatively quickly. And then 2 years ago, I read the first book in the Shades of Magic trilogy, which was A Darker Shade of Magic. I really enjoyed it. I listened to the audiobook and the narration was awful. So I'm definitely planning on reading this one, reading the hard copy of it. But this continues the story of Kel. I think his name is Kel. Look at that, I remembered a character's name. This continues the story of Kel. In this world, there are 4 Londons, white, black, gray, and red. And in the different Londons, there are differing levels of magic. Kel has the ability to travel between the Londons. Not everybody has that ability. So he kind of brings objects in between the different Londons, and you're not supposed to do that. There's another character named Lila. Yes. Named Lila, who gets involved with Kel's adventures and misadventures. I need to find some kind of summary, because I don't think I'm going to completely reread the first book, but I will definitely need to do a summary of what happened in the first book before I continue with this one. I own 3 more, so we are on, I don't know what number we're on. I lost track of numbers. I do have the sequel to Me Before You by Jojo Moyes After You. I have heard some mixed things about this one, and I've heard some mixed things about Me Before You, but I did really enjoy that one. Enjoy might not be the best word, but it really got me emotionally, and I am very interested in continuing with After You, and I believe there's one more as well. I'm not sure if I own the third one or not, to be honest. And then I just recently reread The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, and that is part of a series as well. And this one is called The Angel's Game, which I believe someone told me is kind of a prequel to Shadow of the Wind. So I'm interested in reading this, and I own it, so it's going on my sequel shelf, even if it's a prequel, sequel. The last of the series that I actually own, I'm putting A Rule Against Murder by Louise Penny, even though this is book 4 and I'm technically on book 3, which is The Cruelest Month, but I don't own book 3. But there are a ton of books in this series, more than 12, 13, 14, something like that, and it's continuing on. This is her, Louise Penny's Armand Gamache mystery series, which I love. I've read the first 2 so far. So I'll have to borrow The Cruelest Month from the library, but once I finish that one, this is the next one that I own, so I'm keeping it on the shelf here. And then as the mood strikes, there are a few other series that I'm in the middle of that I just don't own the sequel. One of those is the sequel to Letters to the Lost, which is a YA contemporary book that deals a lot with grief that I read in 2018 and absolutely loved it. And there is a follow-up or companion novel to that one called More Than We Can Tell, and that is by Bridget Kemmerer, and I'm very interested in reading that one. Another book that I read in 2018 was Scythe by Neil Shusterman, and I loved that, but I don't own the sequel, Thunderhead, so I will be borrowing that from the library for sure at some point this year. I'm up to date with the Nevermore series by Jessica Townsend. I've read Nevermore and Wondersmith, which are the only 2 that have been released so far, but I'm hoping, and I think I'm expecting the 3rd one to be released late in 2019, so that will definitely be read this coming year. I will be finishing up the Wayfarers trilogy by Becky Chambers. The first book was The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, and I read A Closed and Common Orbit this year, and the 3rd one, Record of a Spaceborne Few, is the 3rd book in that series, and I would really like to finish that one. Another middle grade duology that I want to finish up is The War That Saved My Life. I read during middle grade March and loved it, and its sequel is called The War I Finally Won. I don't own that one, but hopefully in March I'll be finishing that series as well. Beartown was one of my favorite books in 2018, and it has a sequel called Us Against You, and I definitely want to read that. It would be another Frederick Bachman, and I'm not sad about reading more than one Frederick Bachman in a year. I want to read everything that he's ever written, so Us Against You is definitely going to get read in 2019. Dun, 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 dun. That's it. I have one more. And finally, I just had to go get it, so I'm a little out of breath. Finally, I have Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. This is book 2 in her Grishaverse trilogy. I loved Six of Crows duology, but I read that first. But I'm very excited in continuing this series, which kind of comes before the Six of Crows books. And I just heard that there's going to be a Netflix series based on this universe, hopefully based on these books in particular. So I really enjoyed the first book in this trilogy and definitely want to continue with book 2. So now you know what's on the shelf behind me. These are 17 of the 20 series that I am in the middle of. I would like to finish them. Not a bad goal. I read way more than 20 books in a year, so if throughout the year I can make at least 1 book progress in all of those series and hopefully finish out and have fewer than 20 series that I'm in the middle of, that would be awesome. I do have series that I'd like to read. I have the first book of the Raven Boys, Red Rising by Pierce Brown, The Great Hunt I just hauled from Book Outlet. I have other series that I would like to read. I'm trying to do my best to not start too many series until I make some progress in some of these. Some are kind of chunky and are going to take me a while. I'm looking at you, World Without End, and these fantasy ones here, and Outlander books. Oh man, some of them are pretty long, but I'm excited for them and hope that I make some progress. So hope along with me. I would love to hear from you if you have any series that you're in the middle of. Are you like me and you do a lot of starting and not a lot of finishing? Which series should I continue next? If you're in the middle of any of these and you want to read along with me, motivate each other to keep going, I would love that. Let's chat down in the comments below. And if you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll be talking to you in another video very soon. Bye.